Great question. And George, what do you make of accusations that Russia is spreading misinformation on the situation along the border with Russia and Ukraine and about the meetings in Brussels?
I mean, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. The entire NATO machine has been pumping out the absolute lie that Russia is about to invade Ukraine. Last Christmas and the Christmas before that, I've lost count of how many times Russia was imminently about to invade Ukraine. It is a complete lie. But it is used to generate a sense of crisis to justify the failure of the NATO alliance to concede to what is, most people would agree, an absolutely sensible proposal. The Russians are asking that you don't put weapons minutes from Moscow in countries that were formerly part of the Soviet Union, and that you don't have war games right on the border with Russia. Can you imagine Russia, China having war games in Mexico or Canada, placing missiles in Mexico or Canada? You really have to look at it in its most basic form. No American would allow that. In 1961, we almost had a world war over weapons in Cuba. The idea that Russia can accept this is perfectly fanciful, and Vladimir Putin's not a fanciful person, you know. He's a serious and hard leader of his country. He's not going to be pushed around anymore.
And Arvin, what are the chances the two sides walk away from the meetings with plans to sign an actual document?
I would say slim to zero. Again, if you look at the players involved in the United States side, it's the most influential groups have everything to gain from an escalated conflict. When we're talking about military suppliers, and we're talking about defense contractors, these are some of the most influential groups in American politics. What do they have to gain from peace? Absolutely nothing. What do they have to gain from escalation? Absolutely everything. So the idea that a document with any meaning will be signed to me is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, could there be something that's trivially signed that has absolutely no teeth, absolutely no power? Maybe. But something with real meaning, I would be shocked and amazed.
Interesting. And George, could there be a chance that NATO representatives could agree to not expand the alliance, but maintain that they will expand when and how they want? And will Russia accept this, or will only a formal document do for the Russians?
It has to be a formal document, has to be legally binding. These assurances have been given before, as long ago as President Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev, long forgotten in the latter case. But it has to be a treaty. It has to be legally binding. We will not expand NATO into Ukraine or Georgia. We will not conduct war games in either country. We will not place missiles in either country. Signed, the United States of America, not an undersecretary's nod and a wink, but the President, Biden himself, and the President of Russia, Putin, have got to sign that document. Nothing else or less will get us out of this crisis, and they are taking a terrible risk because Russia will take, I'm sure, preemptive action if there is no solution to this question. And that means moving their missiles into territories that they have not been in before, threatening Europe in the way that Europe in NATO is threatening Russia.
And Arvin, if Russia does take the military course to defend its interests, how do you see that conflict in Ukraine playing out?
I mean, in a military sense, if everybody kept out, I mean, I can't imagine that Ukraine would have any kind of a chance. But what I do see is much more likely is the United States and NATO getting unnecessarily and pointlessly involved. And so over here, you know, I would say that in the United States, if the states were separate, we'd be better off. And I do think that Ukraine would be better off as a separate nation. But the United States getting involved in it is only going to backfire. The United States' past involvement has taken conflicts and made them exponentially worse. If you look at the recent occupation of Afghanistan, it took something that was bad, made it so much worse, and now 20 years later, kind of back to square one. So my hope is the United States is able to show complete restraint and not get involved where it has no business being involved.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time.